Right, hey guys, and welcome. It's myself and Venu, and obviously we're going to be talking about one of our favorite cricketers. Well, I'll say one of my favorite cricketers, but I'm assuming it's Venu's as well. And he's he looks very sad. Yeah, I think it's sad, but we'll still see him in the white ball stuff. But Moeen Ali obviously retiring from Test match cricket, the pinnacle of the sport, Test match cricket. Definitely the best format for sure. Venu, what are your initial thoughts?
A sad day for cricket. That's my initial thoughts, and it just quite ironic that he finishes on 209, just short of 3,000 runs, and just short of how many wickets? Just short of 195 wickets. He just epitomizes Moeen Ali, really, just undervalued and just cut short, really. And yeah, and I think we're going to talk about that in depth as well. But what a what a player! And I just love the way he went around his business, the way he played. Um, he wasn't the loud, like louder like Stokes. He always got very professional, got on with it, and he was a team player. And that's probably one of the reasons why I think another player would have said, "No, I'm just doing this. I'm not doing anything else." But Moeen Ali has batted from 1 to 9 for England, and he's the ultimate team player. And yeah, it's a sad day for cricket, sad day for English cricket, sad day for all us British Asians in particular. But what a great player! But I know we've discussed this many times. He was undervalued and mismanaged by England.
Yeah, I think before we get into that, because actually that was Joe Root actually mentioned that in his statement. I don't know whether it was a statement, an interview, or whether it was written. I'm assuming it was some type of media, but it's actually via the BBC actually. So he's been quoted. But we'll go through the stats first of all, because obviously 34 years of age, and as you said, you hit it right on the head. 2,914 runs, so just short of the 3K mark, and 195 wickets, and that's all in 64 tests. Made his debut against Sri Lanka in 2014. And look, I mean, he's obviously left-handed bat, off spinner, right-handed off spinner, hit 5 centuries and took five wicket hauls in test matches. And obviously that incredible hat trick that he took against South Africa, which is the picture I've got in the background, which was I think one of the best moments of his career. Obviously, finishing with a batting average of 28 and a bowling average of 36 is, they're middling stats. They're pretty good. They're not amazing stats either, but I think probably needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. The fact that he's an all-rounder, I guess, and also the fact that I think he actually is the first player in Test cricket to bat every position 1 to 9. So that kind of says it all, really. I think the most impressive thing is the fact that I think of all the spinners, so he's behind Derek Underwood and Graham Swan, but he's third among the English spinners. So he's taken more wickets than people like Ashley Giles, Monty Panesar, right? These are really good spinners, and Derek Underwood, obviously one of the greats in the past, and Graham Swan is seen as potentially England's best ever spinner. So he wasn't too far behind those guys in Test wickets. And what was interesting is that in 2017, so he started off his career really well. He became the 5th fastest player in terms of matches played to reach 2,000 runs and 100 wickets. So he was in a really hot streak then. I know he scored 4 centuries in 2017, and then after that didn't score any more after. So I think that's part of that probably has to do with him being shunted up and down the order, obviously, and it would be interesting to see, what would have happened if he hadn't. He actually said himself, I think, and I'll read the direct quote because I don't want to misquote him because I put it in the chat. But what he said about his batting, he said, "I do feel like my batting was a little bit wasted. I could have done better than I've done. I feel like I could have scored more Test hundreds for sure." I would ask you, but I know you agree with that, to be fair, because I think we've discussed it plenty of time. But yeah, interesting. I mean, do you think personally, from a test match point of view, obviously he's chosen not to do it, but do you think he still could have done a good job? Would he get into 11 though, in the test side?
You mean in Australia?
Yeah, would you have taken him to Australia?
I would have. I think he's England's top spinner. I think he's ahead of Don Bess. Jack Leach, well, I'm not sure. Jack Leach on a good day, you know, he's a lot more attacking, I guess, than Moeen can take these wickets. But you know, I think Moeen he adds value with the bat, you know, and that's why I think he would be in the team in the Ashes. And it's quite interesting. He said a number of times. I watched a number of his interviews today, and I think one of the things he was most pleased with was the amount of wickets he took. He didn't expect to take as many wickets, just under 300, and it just shows that he saw himself as a batsman, and I think he would have wanted more runs for England, and I think England just mismanaged him, and I think he should have been batting at 5, personally, or doing the Stokes kind of role. But yeah, we'll come on to that in a bit. But you know, 2017 was his golden year, and in that year he was he's joined an illustrious list of players, including Sobers, Bernard, great all-rounders, Callis, Botham. He's one of the few players to have taken 250 runs and 20 wickets in a series, and that was against South Africa, England in 2017. So it just shows how much of a match winner he is. I don't think Stokes is on that list.
No, I don't think he's done that yet, because he's either been very prolific. He's normally been very prolific with the bat, but then hasn't replicated the same with the ball. I think is probably what you would have found. I think, and what's interesting is that Moeen Ali, right, is someone who would have given balance, I think, to Stokes, and I think, will give balance to England in the Ashes, given the absence of Stokes. Max says Ali's batting was too erratic, so loose, getting caught on the slips, chasing wide ones, and no footwork. I completely disagree, and I'll tell you why, Matthew. Because when you're batting 1 to 9, and then you're asked to bat 7 and 8, for example, the whole role of batting at 7 or 8 even is to be attacking. You have to bat with the tail, and you're expected to score runs quickly. The fact that he didn't score a huge amount of runs after that 2017 season, and the fact that he was shunted up and down the order so much, isn't a coincidence. It's not a coincidence whatsoever. So I kind of disagree with you a lot. It was erratic. I agree with that. But there's a reason for it being erratic, because he wasn't batting the position he should have. If you watch county cricket, where does he bat for Worcestershire? He bats in the top 4 in county cricket. So, I think we've got to take that into account. And actually, as Venny rightly pointed out, he wasn't really much of a bowler. England brought him in because they thought, he can bowl a bit of off spin, but he was in there for his batting. And they found out he can do a job with the ball. And then his batting, for England anyway, took a back seat. And it was like, well, we can just put him anywhere. And Moeen Ali was like, I'm happy to bat anywhere kind of thing. So I think in hindsight, he probably might think to himself, maybe he should have stood his ground. But I think also he might think, well, maybe I wouldn't have got the opportunities I got either in the test setup. So I think it goes both ways. What do you think, Manny?
About Matthew's comment?
Yeah.
I disagree. I think there was a bit of a media narrative that he gets up quite cheaply. I guess he does, but I think I do completely agree with his on the fact that he's been, shafted up and down the order to kind of plug in a gap for England. Just not ideal for him. And the fact that he had a prolific year in 2017. Just a shame that didn't get he kept on performing at that level. And I think if England backed him, then he would have done a lot better, I believe.
Did you know why he didn't as well? It's because of that 2017-2018 Ashes series in Australia, Where do you remember we had a massive conversation about this years ago, where he'd taken the most wickets of any bowler in 2017 when he went into the Ashes, and he had a really bad Ashes in Australia, which as a spinner, it's not easy in Australia. They're pretty flat decks. When I say flat, I mean then flat for spinners until you get to read day 5. You watch Nathan Lyon bowl, and he bowls a lot of overspin because he knows he's not going to get a lot of sideways spin. Moeen Ali obviously not being one, an experienced bowler, and two, someone who's actually been bowling as a frontline spinner, it wasn't a surprise he struggled. But he got a lot of stick in that. So I don't think it's a surprise. Then after that, so he got a lot of stick. He got dropped, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the latter end of that series after having a phenomenal year, as we've just mentioned, which makes it even more laughable, to be fair. And then he ended up taking a break after being dropped in the 2019 Ashes at home. So interesting. Matthew says, for England, I much preferred his bowling. I didn't feel incredible on his batting. I take your point, though. Handling of him contributed to his inconsistency. Yeah, agreed. I think the reliance, then over time, right, the more you see it, the more you believe that he's not reliable. And I think, who knows, maybe he wouldn't have been reliable at 5. But I think he showed promise higher up the order, which I think hasn't been tapped into. And I think in the white ball format, we've seen it when he's been up the order, he's kind of enjoyed it. But it's interesting. And I'm going to read you something, Venu, as well, and to the people listening. And I want to get your thoughts on this from Ruth, actually. So Ruth said, Moeen's a huge loss. Said he wished all round every success in everything he chooses to do. Says, Moeen has at times been underappreciated outside the dressing room, but never within it. And then basically said there might have been times when we could have done things slightly differently. When asked about England's management of Moeen, but added, I could say that about a lot of things. Then said he's a wonderful role model, and young boys and girls will want to follow in his footsteps because he's done fabulous things. The way he holds himself, fantastic. He leaves a legacy, etc., etc. What that sounds like is, yeah, okay, we could have done a bit better with him, but I can say that about a lot of things. But I think if we read between the lines, I think there is an admittance that England probably didn't handle him the right way. But he's not going to say it completely, is he? Because what's the point? Like, he's retiring now, and also they don't want to put egg on their faces. So, but interesting, and it's funny because the BBC rightfully in the middle of that they put Moeen hit his maiden Test century in only his second Test match, by the way, and scored 4 tons in 2016, but never added to that tally. Also batting in every position between 1 and 9 for England, which is what they said. Interesting. What do you think of that, Benny, before we get to Matthew's comment? What do you think of
Ruth's comments?
Yeah.
I think it's a typical PC answer, really. Just covering his backside, really.
Yeah, covering all angles.
Covering all angles, yeah. That probably written by the ECB media manager, not by Root. But, Root made one of the biggest, mess ups where, during the India series last year, during the press conference, he said Moeen Ali chose to go home. When, matter of fact, it was actually planned for him to go home. And that just epitomised, I know he wasn't, and kind of epitomised Moeen Ali's, career, really. Just that, and as you say, in that 2017 Ashes, he was used as a scapegoat, even though he was a leading wicket taker. Was he the leading wicket taker? He was leading wicket taker.
He was, yeah.
And it does frustrate me that with Moeen that he was the scapegoat for a number. But you got to look back at his career and just think, what, he did good. He did well. And he could have done better, but he did well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think obviously he's still going to do stuff in the white ball stuff. So I really hope he's got quite a key part to play in the T20 World Cup, considering how it's probably going to be quite spin conducive as well. We're going to discuss that obviously in the debate that we've got. So do check that out. I think it will be 5th of October in the evening. So all of us going to get together and basically hash it out with our teams that we got in the sweepstake. Venu has got... Who have you got, Venu? Australia. Yeah, and I've got Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, so I better do my research into that. Matthew said, but yeah, but then I agree with you actually about Moeen Ali. Obviously, I think it's easy for us to say, how he was handled, etc. And I think they're fair points, but I think we also need to look back and say, the fact that he was given the opportunity. I think he's a very likable character in the dressing room. I think they do get on with him. I just think maybe they took him for granted a little bit, and that can happen when you have someone in the dressing room who's that nice. And sometimes they don't quite. Then, like for example, he's not the type of character like a Stuart Broad, James Anderson, who's going to be very particular about how he wants things done, right? Which isn't always a bad thing, but I think that shows the kind of contrast between characters. Not to say that James Anderson and Stuart Broad shouldn't ask for things because they're legends of the game now, but I'm just saying that you can see the difference in I think characteristics between certain players, and I think Moeen is maybe someone who potentially could have stood up for himself. But it'll be interesting. I'd love to do an interview with him and ask him about it. But I said, do you feel that the quarantine rules in Australia contributed to Ali's decision, especially as Moeen Ali might only have played 1 or 2 tests? I actually think, yes, that did. I think they've actually put that in here. They've said that because Australia are going to be quite strict on the family regulations for quarantine, so they're not sure where the families are going to be able to go. Moeen Ali's got 2 young children as well, so that probably would have contributed. It's probably a good time for him to say, well, okay, look, I'm probably not gonna, I might go to the Ashes, and he probably would have. I actually think he probably would have played all 4 or 5, sorry, even unless he didn't perform well in the first, say 1 or 2. Maybe they bring in Leach or whatever. But I think the fact that because Ben Stokes is not going to be in the side, I think having Moeen Ali in there really helps you balance it, and then you chuck in Chris Wokes probably as well. So that helps you with your kind of all-round capabilities. But without Ben Stokes, they're going to struggle a huge amount. And now with Moeen Ali gone, I think, and in that middle kind of middle order, they're going to have a huge gaping hole to fill now because they don't have any spin all-rounders that can come in at the moment that I can think of, anyways. What do you think, man? Do you think that contributed to it?
Yeah, I think Moeen actually said in one of the interviews that, of course, it's a small factor. He's a contributing factor, but it's quite a small factor. And I think it's quite interesting him saying that he knew he wasn't. He knew he was thinking of retiring when he was on the field during that 4th Test match, and thinking, just my heart's not in it, and I think it's obviously been a tough year for everyone in terms because of COVID and stuff. And I was saying it to a colleague at work. I just think these players, there's so much stress on them. They're playing too much cricket as well. I think there's too much cricket they're playing as well, in terms of franchise cricket, white ball cricket, and also obviously trying to he's got a young family as well, and the fact that they've got to go to Australia and the families can't travel, I think, or I think they're not going to make it.
Yeah, most likely. Well, maybe 1 or 2 people, but
having young, I think that's a contributing factor. It has to be. And as you say, he's got 2 young children, got a young family, and he's thinking, you know what, just focus on white ball cricket, focus on franchise cricket, and also we also got to add, Fizan, that he wasn't given a central contract by England,
which is really interesting because he was put as a white ball player, and then they picked him right for the Test sides. That's very cheeky because most people would have got the central contract, and he's playing in 2 of the 3 formats anyway. So that was a bit cheeky of them, really, because they were kind of like, it's convenient. We can pick you as a white ball player, but then we'll basically say we can use you for the Test match whenever we want. Which I thought was a bit out of order, but anyway, it is what it is. Matthew says, going to be 5-0 anyway, another drubbing on the cards. I don't know if it'll be... Go on.
The fact that Ben Stokes potentially, no Moeen Ali, England 2 biggest all-rounders, the fact that they're not going to have... That's basically the core of the team. The fact that they won't be playing in the Ashes.
No Archer.
No Archer. Who would have thought this coming 2 years ago? Because England were looking good for, and everyone. It's funny. It was quite funny because everyone, the BBC or all the media, the English media, talking about the Ashes, the Ashes. And look what now, Archer for the Ashes will be amazing. Look now, there's no Archer. There's no Stokes. There's no Moeen Ali, and it's not looking good for England. But I'm hopefully be a competitive series. India, everyone wrote of India when they toured, and look what they did. And I'm sure
Yeah. England don't have the same depth.
They don't.
They've got some depth in bowling, but batting they don't. But we'll talk about that, I think, close to the time, because that's going to be a really interesting conversation, I think, especially the side they take, etc. Also, Australia not in a particularly good place as well with their team.
Yeah.
They've got some talent in there, of course, bowling-wise as well. Obviously, Pat Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark, Pattinson, etc. But their middle order, especially, they're not sure. They're number 5, number 6. They're kind of struggling with, but we'll talk about that another time. Just to kind of come towards the end of this conversation, I just wanted to say what Moeen Ali said, which I thought was quite important, and you were saying about obviously British Asians venue as well. So he said, talking about his family first, he said they've all been amazing on my journey. Everything I did for them. My brothers and sisters on my bad days, they've been the first to pick me up, and my wife and my kids. My wife's sacrifices and the patience she has, I'm really grateful for that. This is interesting. He says, my parents are my number one. I feel without their support, there is no way I would have made it. He also thanked former coach Peter Moores, current head coach Chris Silverwood, former captain Alistair Cook, and current skipper Joe Root. And also said he added that he hoped his test career would inspire other British Muslims to play for England. He said, I love one day in 10 years' time for somebody to say, Moeen made it easier for me. There have been guys before me who made it easier. He actually cited Ravi Bopara as one, as a British Asian, and said, so you hope to open the door for someone else. So I thought that was really telling. I think the fact that he was captain for Birmingham Phoenix as well in the inaugural 100 tournament had a big impact as well, and performed really well in that tournament, which obviously, whether you like or not, doesn't it's kind of irrelevant. It's just the fact that obviously he's definitely symbolic, I think, played a huge part. So an incredible player in the test from my estimation. He's not everyone's cup of tea, I'm sure, but I've always loved the way that he's played the game. I think he's very underrated in Test match cricket. I don't think his stats quite do him justice. They're still pretty good for an all-rounder, that's for sure, especially when he's batting as low as he has been, and maybe not utilised in the correct way, but some fantastic moments. That hat-trick and that 2016, 2017, those 2 years were really prolific for him as well. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Not really, no. But a few things. I think he was both our favourite player in terms for England, the England setup for sure. And obviously, I can't talk for what he's done for the British Muslim population because I'm obviously not a practicing Muslim. I'm sure you can talk about that, Fazan. But as a British Asian, I think is really, really important. Seeing some guy from a similar background, not from a wealthy background. Let's put it that way, to make it big and actually can show everyone, what, you can be a British Asian, you can't, or any of it, every minority, and make it into the England team and do well and win matches, have match-winning performances. He had a few match-winning performances, especially during that 2017 year, and I think he'll play it down, but I think 10 years down the line, there are a lot of England players, hopefully, a lot of England players probably citing Moeen Ali as the inspiration.
I think he has resonated a lot. So speaking on behalf of the British Muslim community, because obviously I'm every Muslim in England, but speaking from a personal point of view, I think he's resonated with pretty much most of the Muslim community in the UK anyway, for sure. He also has a lot of respect, I know, from other countries who tour like Pakistan, etc., which is obviously his heritage. But I think the biggest thing for me is that people supported him and they looked up to him and they thought, if he can do it, he's a British Muslim, he's Asian, he's managed to get into the side, similar to obviously like someone like Adil Rashid as well. But I think Moeen Ali's been very vocal about it. He's done a lot of work around it with kids and stuff as well, I think, which is why he's been very proactive with it. I think to me is huge. And like one of the biggest things, if you remember, is wasn't in all the series wins, they always they spray champagne. He managed to get people to understand in the team that like he doesn't drink, so he can't have alcohol on him, which is personal preference. It's up to people whether they want to do it. But he got them to understand that actually before they spray it, can they do a picture without spraying it, and then they'd let him and Adil Rashid go out of the huddle, right, and then do it. And I think it was Alistair Cook actually. It started during Alistair Cook's reigns. Then from then on, they knew. But he wasn't afraid. Like he was obviously proud of his belief, proud of who he was. Wasn't scared of who he was. Wasn't afraid to be himself. Didn't hide away, and embraced himself and embraced the team. And I think that's probably why all the players got on with him, because he's very genuine. He comes across a very genuine guy. Also, I don't know him personally, but that's from what I can see and what people say. That's how it comes across. He clearly cares about England and cares about not just Asians in Britain, but all Brits. Right? He clearly is very patriotic, but he also has connections with his Asian roots as well. So I think he's really important. And I think what he's done is he's bridged the gap between a lot of people who would have had this idea in their head of what Muslims are like. He's got a big beard, right? Which, there's so many connotations to that nowadays, but he's made it normal. And there's so many, what I find really warming even, and really touching is in a lot of these cricket forums, a lot of people say, and they're not Asian, these are normal white English males or females, they're saying to me, Moeen Ali's my favourite player, and they're defending him. Well, and obviously that's not everyone, because he gets his fair share of stick from the media, especially as well, and sometimes unrightly so. But those people that say it makes me think he must be doing something right, and he's representing himself and the country in the right way. And I think that the way that he holds himself, which Joe Root said, is really important. It's not just his performances, it's the way he's played the game, it's the way he's represented himself, the way he speaks, the way he respects people. I think a lot of people love it. And, a lot of those people were saying as well, my kids, my daughter or my son who are young, Moeen Ali's their favourite player. And who would have ever thought 10 years ago you'd have, a white English, girl or boy saying, my favourite player is this Asian guy with a big beard playing for England with a bald head? Would you ever think that?
It's well said, because I was getting quite emotional when you speak about it.
But it's true, right? Would you ever think that? I think we cannot underestimate the impact he's had, not just as a sports person, but I don't want to say icon, because but as a personality and being able to actually expose people to a different culture and say that, look, it's okay to be different, right? And you can still have a place here. Not everyone has to be the same. Let's all respect each other, and I think that's what he's shown, and I think it's been incredible.
To add to that, because on just one quick point, I think Moeen Ali did say in his interview today about he'd love to support the Barmy Army gave him, and they chanted his name, and who would have thought 10 years ago that the Barmy Army will be chanting a Muslim player's name with a big beard, and they absolutely adored him, really, and he did bridge the gap. He's bridged the gap, which was much needed. And there's statistics that in recreational cricket, there's so many British Asians playing, but they just don't get it big time to the England team. And hopefully Moeen Ali has shown these people from ethnic minority backgrounds that you can make it, or even from poorer backgrounds, you can make it into the English test team. So I think you're right. He's left a legacy.
Yeah, it is. It is a legacy, and I think it's because he's been that trailblazer, even where he is a practicing, someone of a different faith who's been practicing, who's very strong. He talks about it very openly. I think there's been players in the past, like Monty Panis, obviously is from a Sikh background, but he was never super open about it. Well, I'm sure he is. I don't know what his kind of his what's the word? What his relationship is with his religion, etc. But I think the fact that Moeen Ali was very open about it, he talked about it very openly. He's very happy to as well to educate people on it and kind of just help people understand, and it helped the community as a whole when people in Britain understand that, look, you don't need to be scared of me, because actually he's the nicest guy on the team, was what most people say. Horace says, rate Moeen Ali's test career out of 10. Well, out of 10 is hard. I would say 6, 7, maybe.
Yeah, I'd say
6.5. I'd say like 6.57. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say maybe 7. I'll go with Venny. I'll say 7. What
Could
do
have
you
been
think?
better for sure.
Sorry?
Could have been better for sure. But
Yeah, it could have been better. It could have, but I think what he has done, I think, and hopefully, what he has done is that someone who comes along who's similar to him will get treated even better. And when I mean better, I mean fairly. And no one wants to be treated better than anyone else. It should be equal. Should be equal respect. It's always hard to do that, especially in a team when people have mates, etc. But we talked about the mistreatment, obviously, in times of the media, etc. Hopefully, he makes it easier for someone coming through, and then maybe we're here sitting up talking about another person who's retired from England. Could be anyone, I don't know, and it doesn't need to be someone of British Asian descent. Could be anyone. Could be the first ever person of, I don't know, Chinese descent, right? Like, imagine how cool that would be from England, and quality player come through, and loving it, and trailblazed it, and he's used him as inspiration. Who knows? Harris says now he can focus on the short format, and apparently he's been doing well in the IPL. Yeah, he has been, to be fair. So he's a good short format player. Harris says how many test caps has he had? Yeah, 68. I think is correct. No, 64. Sorry. So 64. So a fair few. I think we'll wrap it up there. I might take a snip of that part where we talked about kind of what he meant, because I think that was quite powerful actually as a separate video. But yeah, Ben, is there anything you want to say before we stop?
if you were to ask me, Fizan, what cricketer would you like to meet? I would say Kumar Sangakkara will be my number one, and I think close second will be Moeen Ali, and that's saying something. So let's leave it there.
It's true, and I've always said to you, haven't I? The person that I would most like to have on the channel is Moeen Ali, and I was almost close to getting him on. Well, I say that Benny Howell obviously plays for Birmingham Phoenix, but Moeen Ali was the captain at the time. If England hadn't called him up, I was going to ask Benny Howell to get him on, but the next day he was already training with England, so I wasn't able to get him on. But I'll see. Maybe I can I can sort something out. But I'd love to have him on. Literally, I would be ecstatic. He's in my top 3 people of all sports that we cover on here for me to have on to interview. So that says a lot. And we're talking about greats. So yeah. Thank you very much, Benny, for being on. Appreciate it, and good to have your insight as well. As a British Asian as well. A nice input. Thank you for everyone who's joined the live stream as well. Do check us out on all other social media platforms. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and we've also joined Discord, which is a server where you can have discussions like this. On Text is a free open forum. To be honest, obviously try and keep it clean. Don't abuse each other, and enjoy it. It's free. It's a server which we've got different channels for boxing, cricket, and tennis. And you can download it on your phone. It's just an app, and it's quite cool actually. Muhammad actually sorted out, so I thought it's a pretty good idea. And do like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check us out on Patreon if you want to support even more. Magical Gamer saying hello, Magical Gamer. We're just about to wrap up, but obviously when the broadcasting it will be on. And he says, "Wait, you have a server?" Yes, Discord. It is in the description of the previous video. I'll put it in the description of this one as well. It's also on my community tab, Magical Gamer. So check it out. Cool. I will see you guys later. Venny, thank you very much. And stay safe.